Hi, it's Kevin here. I've got a couple quick videos on arrays, specifically arrays in VB. Generally speaking, this will be review, as you have kind of covered off arrays in both C# and C++ by now. So we'll just review some of the array concepts, and we'll take a look specifically at some of the syntax for working with arrays in VB. So looking at arrays, arrays can store one or more elements of the same type, and that is critical to understand. When we take a look later in this chapter, we're looking at chapter 8 in the text, we'll take a look at different collections that could, in fact, hold one or more elements of different types. So the length, the size of the array itself, can be equated to the number of elements in the array, and this little table here indicates the default values. So when you create an array or initialize an array, these are some of the default values that you can expect to be held in place until you assign specific values. So some of the syntax, and here's where things get a little bit different from what you may have experienced. In fact, I'm going to compare this directly to your experience with C#. So in terms of the first distinct difference, we actually declare arrays using an upper bound as opposed to a length. With C#, you always declared the length, or the absolute number of elements. In VB, you're actually going to declare or use the upper bound as an indicator for how many elements, keeping in mind that the index value of arrays is zero-based. So in the case of this example down here, where I've actually declared a totals array as a decimal array, and then I've initialized that decimal array, saying that its upper bound is 99, which in fact provides space for 100 decimal totals. So when you declare and initialize using two statements, we've got the declaration here, and then the initialization here using the new keyword. Like C#, where we might have declared a length for size, for dimensioning of an array, we of course want to declare a constant, in this case, where applicable, to indicate the upper bound. That being said, we're not necessarily always going to take that approach to declaring and initializing arrays. There is also an opportunity to document the lower bound of the array. Now we have a slightly more complex syntax statement in terms of some of the options available to you, and there are some examples here of creating and assigning values. So again, this is or should at least look familiar to you with some of the stuff that you've done in C# and possibly in C++ with a slightly different syntax. So in this case, we've declared totals as a decimal array, and we have assigned values right away. So there's no prior initialization process to those default values. No need to use the keyword new when declaring and assigning values in this manner. This declares and initializes all in one. Here's an example of a string array, and then of course our decimal array. In this case, using the new keyword, you do have the option, as VB likes to give you, more than one way to do things. There's no strict one correct answer. And in answer to the question you're thinking right now, which way does Kevin want it done, I'm completely happy whether you use the new keyword to initialize and then assign values, or if you simply do it in this way, which of course infers the dimension, that upper bound, based on the number of elements in the assignment list. The thing to keep in mind here, if you are going to declare it this way using the new keyword, that upper bound dimension, in this case 3, the list that you assign, of course, has to have the number of elements. Those have to match. So 3 as an upper bound indicates that there should be 4 elements, and we're good to go there. Arrays that we use in Visual Studio for C# and for VB actually come from an array class, which is pretty cool because it allows us access to some of the properties and methods that you would expect from an intrinsic class, and really identical to the C# methods. And in my second presentation, we'll take a look at actually the get length method, and how we get length on one dimension of a multidimensional array. Those are some of the highlights. I fully expect that you're going to be reading Chapter 8. There's lots of great examples of declarations and accessing arrays in Chapter 8. It should, as I say, be pretty much review with just a mind to getting your head around the syntax of working with arrays in the array class in VB.